All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for coming and listening to our talks today. I am going to be speaking to you all about how to write a killer personal statement. In my opinion, one of the most important aspects when it comes to applying to medical school. It's kind of that like 1 to 2, minute skim that people on the admissions committee do to kind of get your story. You have to keep in mind these people are reading, hundreds, if not thousands of applications. So they're really not, doing a kind of a deep dive and reading, every single one in depth, not spending nearly as much time, reading it as you did to write it. So you really want to make it a powerful thing, really rope the reader in, and it's your story. It's your chance to, talk about who you are. Kind of going off of what Caroline was saying, it's your chance to be unique, talk about things outside of medicine, talk about your story, why you're different, that sort of thing. So yeah, I before we get into it, I'll tell you guys a little bit about myself and where I'm at. I'm a recent graduate of the University of Michigan. I graduated in 2022. I studied neuroscience there. I am in my second gap year now. I just kind of finished my whole medical school application process. I'm starting in a few months. I'm technically not, officially committed to any school yet. I know my what do you call it? My profile on Accepted Together says Hofstra Northwell, but I figured I would just list all the schools that I've interviewed at. Some of these I've been accepted to, some of them I'm on the wait list for. So not officially committed, but very happy with the way my cycle went, and happy to be speaking to you guys and offering advice when it comes to your applications. Oh, too far. So yeah, this meeting is being recorded. The first thing that we'll do is, talk about the personal statement, kind of just, what I went over. And then after, I'll open it up for questions, as well as, advertise some of the packages that I offer on acceptedtogether.com. Feel free to reach out to me. I know we're going to open it up for a Q&A at the end, but if you have any follow-up questions, or maybe you're watching this recording, later on, feel free to reach out to me as well with more questions. So yeah, as I said, recent grad, University of Michigan. I loved it there. When I was there, I played rugby. It was awesome. Loved that experience. But if you know anything about rugby, I know a lot of people in the U.S. kind of don't really know much about rugby. It's not so popular here. If you're a Canadian applicant, I think it may be a little bit more popular there, but I'm really actually not so sure. But when it comes to medicine, it was an important part of my story because I got hurt so much. It's such a, violent sport. Things go wrong. I was dealing with, injuries to my leg, to my shoulder, just anything you can really think of. And it was an important piece of my journey when it came to applying to medical school. The process of rehab and healing and working with physicians was, profound for me. So I talk about that in my personal statement. It's part of my unique story and what makes me different from maybe some of the other applicants. Um, yeah, I'm in my second gap year now. I did research for a while. I was at the Feinberg School of Medicine at Northwestern doing some neurology research there. I was there for about a year and a half, and now work as an MCAT tutor, which I love. It's kind of also more of like a consulting type of role where I get to help students and guide them along their journey, similar to this. In my free time, I'm an avid reader. I like lifting weights and exercising. This is a picture of me and my older brother Jared. I'm on the right here. We took a trip to Costa Rica a few months ago and went zip lining, and it was awesome. So that's the picture that I chose. Okay, keep going. So yeah, before we do the personal statement stuff, just very quickly, general AMCAS application tips. I would say, one of the biggest things is you want to apply as early as possible. Generally, they admissions committees review on a rolling basis, and if you're not completed by September, October, getting into those late fall months, a lot of those interview spots are already given out. So I think it opens May 30th this year. That's what it was last year. Ideally, you would like to submit by the end of May, early June. It takes a few weeks to get verified, so that's the goal in my opinion. keep first things first. And what I mean by that is, of course, the personal statement is very important. It's absolutely crucial in terms of your application, but it's kind of hard to, focus on the personal statement if you don't have things like your MCAT squared away, or at least your plan for the MCAT, all your activities and hours. You may, have written the best personal statement of all time. It's absolutely, riveting. It could have been written by Shakespeare or any other, great author out there. But if you don't have any clinical experience, you don't have any shadowing, you don't have anything else, it's kind of useless. So I would say definitely make a plan for that. Plan out your timing, whether or not you're going to take a gap year or not. I took 2 gap years myself. Or if you want to apply straight through, there's nothing wrong with that. But I would say definitely, focus on making a good plan for yourself, because there's a lot of moving pieces. Create a plan that works for you. Don't compare yourself to others. I know when I was an undergrad, I was guilty of, looking at the people who were already applying and getting in, and it's your journey. It's such a long journey. It's such a rewarding journey. It's such a challenging journey. Um, and you have to do it your way. So don't compare yourself to others. Make a plan that works for you. Eventually, it will all work out. So, yes. That being said, with things like timing, reach out to reference letters, potential writers early. You definitely don't want to be in the position of not being complete at a medical school because your writer is some very busy professor, or some person who's a little bit older and not great with technology, and maybe they are taking time to kind of get your letter in, and you don't want to be, part of that whole mess. You just want to have your letters squared away early. There are things you can use to store them ahead of time. I used Interfolio, um, and that will help you be complete on time. And then also pre-write your secondaries. I put that in bold. That's absolutely, that's huge. When they come in really, really fast. If you're applying to, 20 plus, 30 plus schools, it's a lot of essays. You can reuse them. So that's why pre-writing is huge, because you can kind of reuse a lot of that material. Some of the questions they repeat, kind of why this school. You can take ideas from one, maybe use it for another, maybe, an essay about, tell me about a challenge you overcame, or tell me about a meaningful volunteer experience. You can kind of reuse them and tweak them a little bit. So that's where pre-writing really, really helps you. Okay, moving on. So specific to the personal statement, this is, what we're going to spend the rest of the time here talking about. What I was kind of getting at before, it's important to be unique, tell a story, tie it into your why medicine. I think that telling a story and being unique, being true to yourself is kind of the biggest key in this. Um, a lot of people, have very similar reasons for applying. If it may be true that you love helping people, you love being in the hospital, you really like science, but if your personal statement is, I like science, I like helping people, that's not interesting. That's it may not be a detriment to your application, but it's not going to be something that helps you. And the process is so competitive that why not use every bit of this as leverage for making yourself stand out. So that's why I say be unique, be interesting in your personal statement, and use it as something that's going to make the person, whoever it is on the admissions committee, who's again probably just skimming through your application in just a couple minutes, or at least the personal statement in just a couple minutes, make them remember you. Give them, that's for me, for example, could have been, oh, that's the guy who, was the rugby player in college who like talks about his story overcoming challenges. For you, it may be that's the person who worked as a nurse before applying to medical school, who was, telling these amazing stories about patient care, whatever it is. Tell your story and, show why you're different than the other people applying, but still tie it into your why medicine. I put that part in bold because I think a lot of people miss that, and they don't realize that the personal statement is really, you're answering kind of why you want to go into medicine. And so, yes, definitely tell a great story, but make sure you get at that, the purpose behind it, why you want to go to medical school. Try not to overdo it. Don't be overly complex. No one's looking for some crazy, Nobel laureate-esque essay where they don't understand half of what you're writing. I think you just want to be simple, concise, to the point. I say avoid cheesy quotes. I'm personally not a fan of like trying to be too dramatic or crazy with the quotes, but if you find a great one that works for you, by all means go for it. But my general advice is just avoid it. I just think it can be, you know, kind of cheesy and you only get, I think it's 5,300 characters. So use them all in your own words. Don't take somebody else's. Um, I say show off, but don't brag. Someone said that to me. I think that was, you know, a great way of putting it. You know, kind of what I wrote there. Be subtle, highlighting good qualities. I think that's, you know, the main idea. So instead of saying like, I'm a very compassionate person. I'm a very this, I'm a very that. You know, that's kind of like bragging. You're talking about yourself, but you want to show off. Like I think the emphasis should really be on the show part. So instead of saying, I'm so compassionate, I care about, you know, healthcare inequalities, I care about XYZ, you know, instead say, through my experience volunteering at the hospital, I, you know, experienced blank, blank, blank. So you're not saying, you know, I'm a good person, I volunteer, I love this. You're saying this is what I do, and you're leaving it up to them to kind of draw that conclusion. Um, I'll show you, you know, an example of that in my personal statement later on in this presentation. Definitely the more drafts, the better. That being said, get several sets of eyes on it. Send it to a friend. You'll get it back. You'll review it. Send it to a consultant or mentor, whoever that may be. Um, Getting, you know, other people to read it. Maybe, you know, one person out of the four catches that typo. One person, you know, catches the that you're not really getting at your why medicine, or a sentence, you know, could be used better, or you sound too repetitive. Definitely get you know, a number of people to look at it. I think the more the merrier, more drafts, more people. Okay, moving on from there. So this is my personal statement, or this is the beginning of my personal statement. I kind of just put chunks from my personal statement throughout this presentation. This is the beginning of it. Um, what I'm doing here is I'm setting up a story. I'm, you know, saying trying to be interesting. Maybe, you know, rugby and sports are not interesting to everybody, but the attempt is there. Telling a story, trying to be interesting. On a winter day in Ann Arbor, I came across some chalk writing on the campus pavement. So, you know, creating visuals, I think, you know, that's huge. You can almost like picture, you know, this person, or picture me, you know, walking through the campus, seeing this. Um, what I was thinking, I wasn't aware people in the US played rugby or why there was practice on a Monday night, but I decided to show up. It kind of like makes you want to read on. You're like, all right, this guy, he just sees, you know, an advertisement for rugby practice. He's showing up. It's kind of like, what else? It's really, it's kind of like a hook. If you can remember from English class, however long ago that was that you took it, or maybe you're taking it now. Um, those rules still apply. You know, setting it up, the hook, still the it's, I wouldn't say it's an essay, but it's kind of like, you know, has essay like components to it. Um, so yeah, that's, you know, that was my beginning part of it. Let's move on here. So I go on and I talk about some of the stuff that I was talking about with like the show off but don't brag. I guess this part here is the most like showing off part of the whole thing, like saying that I developed discipline, and, you know, I developed camaraderie, and I, you know, received awards. Um, it's kind of like a dance. You don't want to spend the whole time ushing and gushing about yourself, but if you are proud of yourself, if you've done great things, there's no reason not to slip that in. I would say, if anything, you should slip that in, because you know, that's what you're doing. You're applying. You're trying to show yourself off. I know. Again, Caroline was kind of touching on this stuff. Don't like reiterate what your activities are, and don't say like, this is what I did, this is what I did, this is what I did. That's what the activities are for. But if there's a little thing you're proud of, feel free to slip that in. In my, you know, position, it was awards I received playing rugby. I talked about a tournament that I won, and, you know, I think that, you know, that's kind of the showing off, but not bragging. It's, this is what I did and accomplished, but, you know, I'm kind of leaving it up to them to, you know, kind of decipher that and saying it more indirectly. This is kind of more of the telling my story aspect, that I injured myself. This process of continuous physical rehab is one I know has strengthened my ability to overcome challenges. So again, that's kind of the, you know, showing off. I'm someone who's resilient, overcoming challenges, and I'm kind of setting it up for my why medicine. That's the part that I think I was missing the most as I was going through these drafts, but you'll see how I kind of tie that in. I'm kind of like setting it up right now, the physical rehab aspect of it. I'll continue to the next slide here. So here I talk about my rehab process. It was possible through access to excellent patient care, innovative medical technology. I'm grateful for this. I know that not all have access to this caliber of care or modern innovation. This awareness has led me to act on opportunities in my community through volunteering at XYZ. And then I talk about some of the volunteering things that I did at the hospital and the local food kitchen. So it's showing off. Again, I'm not saying like you guys should take me because I'm so like good for the community. I volunteer. I'm so, understanding of what's going on, but I'm saying this is what I've done. I have this awareness. I'm, acting on opportunities, and the goal is to have the reader say, you know what, Brett's a good guy. This is what he's doing. I'm going to make the decision for myself that he, is a good person, and not take his word for it, but take his actions for it. So that's kind of what the whole showing off aspect is, but not bragging. So yeah, and again, here I'm tying it into medicine. Again, saying things like the patient care that I received was, monumental. It's this innovative medical technology. It was so inspiring for me to undergo that process and develop this passion for medicine. I'll keep going. So okay, so this is the let me just make sure that is the last quote that okay, so there's two. Oh, did I you guys can still see that, right? I think I went too far ahead. Okay. There we were. So this is the second to last part about my personal statement before, we wrap up and I turn this to questions. But so then I kind of talk about, more of my why medicine. I'm committed to improving healthcare accessibility. Modern innovation has been at the forefront of my interest in science and medicine for a long time. I talk about my research experience. I think what's key with that is not overdoing it with complexity. I think I generally, tell people to kind of avoid that. You don't want to like be boring someone and trying to like impress them and get all crazy. You may be doing the coolest thing ever, but what I kind of like to, say is if you were to bump into like the random average Joe on the street and they were like, "Oh, you do," or if you don't do research, this isn't so relevant. But for the people who loved research and were kind of, the research aficionados like I was during undergrad and after undergrad, this is kind of the advice that I give. Um, is what do you say to someone who is like, oh, to the mailman or someone who has no experience with this, what do you research? And so in my case it was focusing on dementia or neurodegenerative diseases, rather than saying, I study this crazy gene doing these genome splicing and RNA, whatever it is, photon imaging. Just kind of leave that stuff out. You can touch on it a little bit like I kind of did, but in my opinion, that's something that if it comes up in the interview and you're talking with someone who's very interested in it, or maybe a researcher themselves, that's where I think, that's more relevant rather than a personal statement. I think, not to rain on your parade, but I don't think that, the average person is as interested as you are in the nitty gritty of your research. You may be, doing something that's extremely, extremely meaningful and impactful, but I think, you don't want to lose people in writing some crazy, paragraph that belongs in a research paper. So just kind of avoid that, but definitely talk about it if it's something that was important to you, like it was for me. Okay, so last part about my personal statement here. This was my conclusion. So again, I was really trying to tie it in together, kind of making it obvious and, this is my why medicine. I want to bring my curiosity and scientific contributions to the advancement of neurology treatment directly to patients. So that's, kind of being more direct with it. Instead of alluding to it, saying, I did research in neurology. I like it. And again, you don't necessarily need to be set on a specialty. I know that I'm not. Um, but I think, if you have an interest, it's okay to share it. And that's what I did. And I think it makes it more tangible. I was doing kind of more of the show, not tell. I've been working in this field. I'm interested in it. I, conducted research in it. And, part of my why medicine is because I love the field and I want to, not only do I want to be in the field, but as a medical doctor, but I want to engage in research as well. Um, as I continue here, it seems like I'm not stepping back on the rugby field anytime soon, though there's always a chance. I'm optimistic I can draw strength from those days in my quest to, again, my why medicine. I want to continue modernizing medicine and providing compassionate care. Those are things that I want to do, things that I've done in the past. I, volunteered at the hospital. I was, worked in research labs. So those, speaking from experience. So, you're showing off but not bragging. I know I've used that term like 100 times. So sorry for boring you with that quote, but I think it's like the whole, someone that I worked with in the past, an advisor was like, that's the whole thing. Show off, but don't brag. And it really stuck with me. So that's why, I always love that advice because it makes so much sense. Um, so this last part here, I aspire to continue exploring and taking risks, just like I did on a winter day in Ann Arbor. And so I literally tied it in together here. This last portion of, the last sentence, on a winter day in Ann Arbor, was actually, I'm just going to go back a few slides. It was actually the exact same phrase as the first sentence, the first part of the first sentence of my personal statement, on a winter day in Ann Arbor. Someone pointed that out to me, and I thought that was like kind of funny that I literally like tied it in on both ends. So, you definitely don't have to do that. That's kind of like an exaggeration there, and funny that it worked out like that. But again, the whole part that I was trying to accomplish was, tying in my story, making it a cohesive thing. The on a winter day in Ann Arbor thing is, alluding to my rugby story and, kind of, myself. There's no one else who's going to have that story who is, in college at Michigan, decided they were going to play rugby, got hurt. It's, you got to like find something that's unique amongst your story and kind of tie it in. I don't even really know if I would say it matters so much what it is. It can be anything. It could be a one-time story that happened on one day. It could be something that, spanned all 4 years of your college experience, or maybe, you're far out of college, something that happened during your gap years or happened, at any point in your life. But I think you want to find something that's going to be memorable, that's going to stick out to them. But you definitely need to have some of those, key things there when it comes to why medicine. Touch on the obvious things. Don't neglect them and kind of treat this as if it's like a, I don't know, English class, like story time. A little bit, throw that in there, make it creative. You can make it funny, you can make it, crazy, but I think you still want to have that um portion of professionalism and respect for what you're getting into. And so you definitely need to touch on your story when it pertains to why medicine, why you're a good fit, the good qualities that you bring. So don't get carried away, don't get overly complex, don't, be irrelevant. And I think, you really need to just get ideas down, write them out there. Your first draft should look, very different from your final draft. That's, kind of the beauty of it. But the earlier you start this, the more drafts you make, the more people that look at it, I think the better off you'll be. So it's a fun part. It's generally, what you do. Again, I'll just so yeah, that was my last portion about the personal statement from my own personal statement. But again, I think this is kind of like the most fun portion. You took the MCAT, or you've at least made a good plan for it, or got your score back, or you're waiting for your score. You kind of, have done the hard part, and now it's time to apply. It's tell your story, like, be fun, get into it. And, this is like, it's almost like the reward at the end is you get to apply. It's a privilege. Many people don't reach this point. And so if you made it this far, you're doing something right. Continue leading into that, build momentum, and just have fun with it, because it's a unique chance to tell your story. You've worked hard, you have taken difficult classes, you have, sacrificed some free time, or you have, just worked really, really hard to get to this point. So just enjoy it. Take a deep breath. You'll be okay. I know there are a lot of moving parts, but just approach it one day at a time, one thing at a time. It will all work out, and take as much time, as you need to. For the sake of time, I'll just, quickly, these are my packages that I offer on, acceptedtogether.com. I do offer, free consultations. So if that's something you're interested in, we can have a meeting, 10, 15 minutes, give you some advice and, kind of take it from there. Um, and yeah, these are the things, that I offer: personal statement, AMCAS packages, secondary editing. I don't think this image shows interview and Casper stuff. That's something that, if it's not added, I'll add later on. Yeah, this barcode goes right to my profile. And if you have any questions about, personal statement, or just applying to medical school via AMCAS in general, feel free to reach out to me on acceptedtogether.com. As well as right now, because this is the Q&A portion of this talk. You can,